Here's a Guardian article from, when is it? 2 days ago. IOC, that's the International Olympic Committee, praises weightlifter Laurel Hubbard before transgender athlete's Olympic debut. If I may have my screen back. So this person, Laurel Hubbard, I think is going to debut on Monday, so has not happened yet. I'm just going to quote a few more places from the article, but from my screen, so don't show, Zach. The IOC's Medical and Science Director, Dr. Richard Budgett, said, quote, "Everyone agrees that trans women are women." Hubbard's participation in Tokyo, Hubbard being the athlete, has proved controversial, with her supporters hailing it as a historic moment for trans rights, with the IOC's critics believing that the 42-year-old New Zealander, who had never competed internationally until transitioning at 35, has an unfair and substantial advantage. Final quote, "Recent scientific papers have also shown that anyone who undergoes male puberty retains significant advantages in power and strength even after taking medication to suppress their testosterone levels." And one of the papers, you don't say, right? One of the papers that they cite here, or maybe the only paper, is this excellent paper by Emma Hilton and Tommy Lundberg that just came out and that we managed to just sneak into our book just before the final edits were done, called "Transgender Women in the Female Category of Sport, Perspectives on Testosterone Suppression and Performance Advantage." So one thing I want to say here is, slight kudos to The Guardian for actually, it's by no means a perfect piece, but The Guardian has been a sort of canary in the coal mine of woke ridiculousness for a while now. And hey, Zach, can I thank you? Has been a canary in the coal mine for woke ridiculousness for a while now. But this piece actually has not just some nuance, but actually some truth. And having just simply putting it out there that the IOC's Medical and Science Director says everyone agrees that trans women are women. Well, no, they don't. And if you've got a degree and you're the director of both medicine and science, the fact that you can say that means you're not fit for your job.
Yeah.
Like you're just not. And, who cares? A 35-year-old person transitions, never having competed before, and now 7 years later is in the Olympics in weightlifting. Right. It's not even like fencing, right? Which like everything is sex segregated. Everything is sex segregated, but weightlifting, for Christ's sakes?
Yeah.
Like even our pelvises being differently shaped makes men more stable on their feet. This is insanity.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're here.
Right. And, it's heralded as a major victory for trans rights when it's actually a major setback for women.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. So disappear women's sports. Right. And in fact, I just want to read a small bit from this book, Helen Joyce's Trans When Ideology Meets Reality. This just came out this month. We got a preview copy, and I have not read the whole thing. I have skimmed it all and read some of it. And it is, as I was expecting, quite excellent. And she does a section on basically a history of female sports as well, which I didn't know, and is quite interesting. And basically, like with the recognition that women have different etiologies and manifestations of disease, and we need to recognize that in our healthcare practices in order not to be killing women because we think they're just men but smaller. So too, have just recently women been not just allowed to compete at the elite levels, but been given their, our own places to do so, because when women compete directly with men, unless it's in something that is explicitly co-ed, like mixed doubles in tennis, or, the sport that we played a lot of, ultimate frisbee, really allows for wonderful games when they're co-ed. And, I played a lot of co-ed frisbee. I played competitively on the women's team at University of Michigan, and watched, therefore, in a lot of tournaments, a lot of men's play, a lot of women's play, a lot of co-ed play. And frankly, in that particular game, and there are a lot of sports that don't allow for it, but in that particular game, co-ed, he's going to knock that over. Just move that. Co-ed play allows for the best of both. Right? Well,
hold on a second. For those who haven't played it, it specifically neutralizes the problem right? If you take the big dude on the ultimate team and he teams up against the little
They're doing
woman,
man on, he lines up against a woman,
right,
and that's who he's defending
he'll shut
against.
her down.
Yeah.
And that's considered unfair. So the idea is when you line up before a particular point, you line up against somebody with whom you are appropriately matched. So it can be a man against a woman if they're appropriately matched. But the point is it neutralizes the ability of men to shut down women.
Right. But also if you're playing zone rather than man on defense, that further neutralizes it. But you do need, it's understood that you need to have an equivalent or, usually an equivalent sex ratio on both teams.
Right.
If you've got, and this is true in co-ed competition where I think it's been a while since I played. I ruptured my Achilles tendon doing so. I think you're always required to have two women on at a time. And basically, if you claim you're a co-ed team and you only have men on the field at the time, you're not effectively playing co-ed. But what I was going to say is an all male game, which are fun to watch. There's just this raw physicality, but there tend to be long hucks and fast runs into the end zone, layouts, spectacular, all of this, but the points are short. Most people don't touch the disc. A lot of people don't get play. And
many beers are held.
No. But, in women's games, it tends to be almost the opposite, like a lot of short passes, a lot of focus on making sure, not in the competitive stuff, there's not as much focus on make sure everyone touches the disc, but, shorter passes, fewer long hucks, longer points, gets a little tedious. And, I never liked playing the women's game as much as I liked playing the co-ed games because it has both. Because there is more strategy and focus on how are you going to do this. If you got some 6'6" guy who's going to show up and shut you down anytime you get the disc, you gotta think strategically and realize that your strength isn't necessarily in raw power and size and speed. Right. So anyway, in that case, and it won't be the case in a lot of team sports, but in that case, there is actually a way to play co-ed that is wonderful. And I would say, that's what life offers as well. Let me just read one paragraph from the introduction of Helen Joyce's new book. She begins by saying, just one paragraph here. This is a book about trans activism. It is a story about policy and institutional capture of charitable foundations controlled by billionaires joining forces with activist groups to pump money into lobbying behind the scenes for legal change. They have won over big political parties, notably America's Democrats, and big businesses, including tech giants. They are backed too by academics in gender studies, queer theory, and allied fields, and by the pharmaceutical and healthcare industries, which have woken up to the fortunes to be made from gender-affirming medicine. So it's the same everywhere. Right? We got the same kind of story everywhere. We got capture and activism that may or may not be coordinated, but its effect is as if it was.
Yeah. And I hate that this is now manifesting in new realms, but really the point is this was what we were trying to warn people about when we were talking about the danger that capture and corruption poses to our ability to function coherently. And, the fact that you're seeing it across the social media platforms, the fact that you're seeing it in science, medicine, health policy, our military, everything, the fact that everything is susceptible to being pushed into insane contortions is just evidence that we have a very serious problem, right? And, Evergreen many people took to be almost funny in how over the top it was, but it was a warning, right? This is what corruption does to a system. It renders it incoherent, and an incoherent system doesn't collapse immediately. But at the point you recognize that these, falsehoods have taken over the steering mechanism, it's an emergency, whether or not there's an iceberg visible, right? There's going to be one at some point.